This is the lesson from Friday, September 6th. That was our introduction to prepositions. We had done all of the parts of speech as a review, and so prepositions is where we're going to actually spend our time with at the beginning of the school year. And so I had students using their notes from last week look up information about, and a lot of this is going to be redundant as we get used to the terminology. So there's going to be a lot of repetition of the formula and the definitions of each of the parts of speech, but that's just to get students used to using the terminology correctly. So we looked in our binders and found what was the definition we used last week for a preposition, and it is a word, as all grammar is, a word that shows a relationship between a noun and another word in the sentence. And we'll talk about that relationship here in a minute, but for right now, just get that definition copied down into your notes. We looked, and I'm going to jump down to here, that a prepositional phrase, here's our formula, and I had students highlight this in class because it's really going to be how we're going to keep coming back to identifying them. It's a formula that no matter what words you plug into it, kind of like in math, you'll end up with a prepositional phrase. So as long as you have a preposition, and for right now you have a list in your binder that you can use, it has to end with a noun or a pronoun and can only have modifiers in the middle. And so if you end up with a verb here in the middle or a verb at the end, then you know it's not a prepositional phrase because it doesn't follow this formula. And so we have a special name for this noun at the end of the sentence, and that's the object of the preposition. And so we filled in here that the object of the preposition is a noun or a pronoun. And to help you understand kind of why we call it an object of a preposition and not just any old noun, we compared that to looking at like your mom. Your mom is a noun. Your mom is a person, but she does many jobs. She can be your mom. She's an aunt to somebody. She's a daughter. She's a teacher when she helps you with your homework. She's a chef. And so one person does many jobs. And so just like a noun can do many jobs, one of those jobs is the object of the preposition. They can also be subjects of a sentence and appositives. And so for right now, we're only going to focus on this one job, and we're looking at the noun at the end of a prepositional phrase. And then the modifiers that are allowed to be in the middle are adjectives and adverbs. And we said modifiers is just our fancy 7th grade word for words that describe. And so we looked at this prepositional phrase, and what I have students doing in class is highlighting them if they have a highlighter or circling them. And so we looked for a word that was on our list, and I see the word before. And so if it's a prepositional phrase, I should have a noun at the end, and I do, game. And so if it's really a prepositional phrase, I'm only allowed to have modifiers in the middle, and the is an article adjective, so before the game is a prepositional phrase. And we would label this noun as an OP. It's the noun at the end of a prepositional phrase. Now we also looked to see that there was another prepositional phrase in here, and we see 2 times that to is used. And so that brought us to a new formula that we're going to talk about. Sometimes the preposition to is not actually a preposition. It's only a preposition if it's followed by modifiers and a noun. But if it's followed by a verb, then it's an infinitive. And so we have another formula to add to our mix. Infinitive equals to plus a verb. A verb. And a prepositional phrase equals a preposition plus modifiers plus a noun. And so we're going to keep revisiting these formulas as we look at our parts of speech. But if we look up at this sentence, we have 2 places where to is used. In one case, it's an infinitive, and in one case, it's a prepositional phrase. And so I wanted to go to Wendy's. I think it's a little easier sometimes to find the verb And so I would look at the word after to. Is go a verb, or is Wendy's a verb? And so go is definitely the action here. And so the way that I'm going to have students code prepositional phrases is we put brackets around them. So to go is a prepositional phrase, which leaves to Wendy's to be, so to go is an infinitive. So to Wendy's is a prepositional phrase. And we could check it. Is Wendy's a noun? It is. It's a restaurant. It's a place. So there's my object of a preposition. And then we had one more use sometimes that we'll see our prepositions used as. How can you tell if a word is used as an adverb or a preposition? And so I gave them the sentence, I wanted to go before, but not now. And so if we look at this sentence, I see the word before, but there's no noun after it. Before, but not now. There's no before anything, as opposed to saying, I wanted to go before the game, but not now. And so we see that in this case, we will see in just a second. In this case, there's definitely a noun after before. And so there's a prepositional phrase, before the game. Here, there's no noun after it. It's just an adverb by itself. So how can you tell if a word is an adverb or a preposition? It's an adverb if it's by itself. And that's how we're going to check. And so we've got a bunch of different ideas here. We've got infinitives, we've got prepositional phrases, and we have adverbs that we're going to be working through as we look at sentences. So then we did a few sentences together. Students had to find the prepositional phrase, and for right now they should have their preposition list out in front of them. I see the preposition like, and so I'm looking for a noun after like Mrs. Culleton. And since I see a conjunction there, I want to see, is there another thing that it's like? And it is. I have two objects of a preposition. I have Mrs. Culleton and Mrs. Ryan. They're both nouns. And then I see another preposition of, so I'm going to think of my formula. Preposition plus modifiers and a noun. Bugs is a noun, and many describes how many, so that's a prepositional phrase. And so bugs is my OP, object of the preposition. They run from anything with 6 or 8 legs. I see a preposition from, and so in this case it's a pronoun, from anything. And that's my object of my preposition. And then I see another prepositional phrase, or I see a preposition with what? And I keep going until I find my noun, with 6 or 8 legs. And so legs is the object of the preposition. And I've got some modifier. How many legs? 8 legs. 6 legs. Okay. Now I'm going to skip over here to number 6 just to talk about one more thing. As we look for our prepositions, I see the preposition without. So I look for a noun without what? Without insect predators. Predators is a noun, the predators. So there's my object of the preposition. And I have a modifier. What kind of predators? Insect predators. Now we're going to talk about prepositional phrases at the beginning of the sentence. If it's an introductory prepositional phrase, you have to have a comma there. We did not have a prepositional phrase at the beginning of these. They're at the beginning, or in the middle, and they're at the end, so you don't need a comma. But if you see a prepositional phrase at the beginning of the sentence, or if you write a prepositional phrase at the beginning of a sentence, a lot of times we use these as transitions on Friday before school. They need to have a comma after them. And you can almost hear the pause when you're reading it. So we will again be practicing all of these ideas throughout the next couple of weeks.